Hello, and you're all very welcome along to another episode of the Gaelic Statsman Podcast. I'm your host, Matthew Hurley, and I'm joined here by Jason Keelan for the Loaf of Bread Gaelic Podcast to discuss this weekend's games in football, hurling, LGFA, Camogie, the whole shebang. Obviously, there's a lot of games to get through. It's probably the busiest weekend of the championship yet, with the All-Ireland series starting this weekend with the group stage. You have the Tailteann Cup beginning as well. The hurling is probably a bigger weekend than any other, with the Munster Championship coming to fever pitch. You have the Leinster Championship being probably the most exciting in recent memory, and you have the Joe McDonagh, Christy Ring, Nicky Rackard, all them competitions to get through as well. So just before I start the podcast, shout out to our sponsors at Capture Athletics. If you want the best gear around, check them out if you haven't already. So yeah, Jason, how you been over the last few weeks or so? The championship is coming to fever pitch more so the last few weeks than the start of the season. The start of the season kind of was a slow burner in maybe football, maybe not hurling, but football more so. But it's coming to fever pitch right about now.
Yeah, thanks a million, Matt. Good to be back on again with you. Yeah, slow burner definitely to start, and definitely things getting going now. Was delighted that my own Westmeath managed to sneak their way into Sam Maguire after the most horrific of days against Wicklow. Never like relying on other people. Hurler's not going so good, really. I suppose we get into that. But yeah, the Munster hurling, absolutely brilliant. Leinster hurling, so bizarre in so many ways, which is great. It needed a bit of a boost. It was kind of heading along the same kind of lines nearly as Leinster football there for a while. It's certainly a little bit more interesting now. So yeah, plenty to get through, and hopefully, as you said, this weekend is as exciting as everyone hopes it will be.
Hopefully so, yeah. And as you said, Leinster hurling there is probably more exciting, way more exciting than the football anyway. It's absolutely brilliant. And Denise, a regular contributor to the podcast here, says hello to you both. Hello, Denise. Thanks for joining us this evening. And I suppose no place better than any other to start off in the Munster Championship and with this game, Tipperary against Cork in Semple Stadium, Thurles at 4 p.m. live on RT2 on Sunday. And the scenario in this, whoever loses this game is out of Championship 2024. A draw will eliminate Cork, but a draw might be good enough for Tipperary, but it obviously wouldn't be ideal for them given the situation they are in at the moment. And just a shameless plug there, I wanted to show you the table of the Munster Championship just before we get going on the games. It is a tight one, as Jason mentioned at the start of the show. So this is the standings of the Munster Championship as we move into match day 4, so we're moving into the second last match of the Munster Championship. So Limerick at the top, sitting pretty. They are playing this weekend, obviously. You have Waterford at second, Clare at third. Both of them are playing, and we'll discuss that later on. That game, Cork and Tipperary, as we mentioned before, it's a must-win for both sides. So crucial game for Cork and Tipperary this, Jason. And Cork, their season starts to be revitalised after that win over Limerick last weekend. Tipperary are kind of waiting for that revitalisation to come, but will it come this weekend?
Yeah, it's a tough one to know. Like Tip have been, I don't know what word you'd use, abject by their traditional high standards. I was only chatting with my neighbour down home, Barry Kelly, obviously referee. We were chatting a bit about Tipperary there recently, and I was just saying that there has to be some kind of disconnect between the clubs and the county, because it's not as kind of settled as it used to be. You know, traditionally Tipperary will be, you know, on the top in the country, and you see them sitting there so far down the table. It's just it's quite strange in some ways. The fact they scored so little from play against Limerick, they never really put it up to them, which was kind of frustrating. It's the same kind of names that you're still relying on. There's no real massive young star who's come through and taken the team on. For Cork, Fitzgibbon obviously has been immense. You still have Harnedy, Horgan, what's the other guy, Shane Barrett. They're the kind of, I suppose, main threats for scoring. Like I think Cork might just have the upper hand given the way that the Limerick game went. They'll be absolutely buzzing. Obviously, you've been down in Cork, you know, a little bit more than me as well, but they weren't, you know, it was a titanic game against Limerick, but, you know, they could still be a bit more from Cork. Maybe that might be the thing that might push them on a bit. I don't see Tip going anywhere. I could be totally wrong. You know, they could turn up on the day when they need to, but they haven't looked like Tipperary of old, Tipperary that, you know, was chasing all Ireland titles. They look like they're kind of struggling a little bit. I don't know what you think, I suppose, on the Cork end of things, maybe.
Yeah, like it was a weird one going into the Limerick game because like the Waterford game, it seemed like the chances were gone to get out of Munster. The Clare game was decided by the big decision with the Sean O'Donoghue red card. And then the Limerick game happened, and it was just a erupting emotion around Páirc Uí Chaoimh. There was no doubt about it. It was something that the park was longing for a long time, that game against Limerick, and it was absolutely brilliant. And even though I've done stats in all the Munster Championship games, and what I noticed was that the trend in this, Cork averaged, I think, around a 70% shot accuracy per game. Tipperary conceded 45 shots against Limerick. They conceded 43 against Waterford. And that's an average of 44 shots a game. If those figures were to come a pass on Sunday, Cork would score about 29 to 31 scores on Sunday. And you'd imagine that would probably be enough to beat Tipperary. And I think the main question from a Tipperary point of view is, what star can come up to the plate? Like Jake Morris has over the last few games, Mark Keogh has as well. But then when you look at the bench, like Patrick Bonner has, John McGrath has, Noel McGrath has in certain aspects of the game, but they have done so for a very long time. Who's going to be the next guy for Tipperary to step up? And that would be the main question for Liam Calsman.
Yeah, it would be. And like you mentioned a lot of players' names there, like, and Jason Ford on the freeze is still so essential to them. And it's disappointing if you're a Tip fan, I think, because it's not like they're stuck for players. It's not like there's, everyone in Tip suddenly hasn't converted to play football and they're all stopped playing hurling. Like, there's plenty of choice for them, and it's just not translating, particularly with the county, whatever it is. And I don't know, like you were saying there with the stats, like that's 44 shots on average per game. Like, realistically, Cork have the sharpshooters to put away 30 plus of them. And I don't see Tip, bar the Cork backline, decides to go mad and concede frees all over the place. I think they'll shut them down pretty handily enough. I don't see it being the end-to-end kind of game, that Cork and Limerick was for a good while, and a few other the Leinster games have been as well. The two of them are at the bottom of the table, but it could end up being a slightly more one-sided affair with maybe Cork coming out, comfortable enough winners at the end, dare I say. Might be putting my head in the line, but I haven't been impressed by Tip this season. I haven't been impressed by them in a while. They just look, I don't know, they're just missing something. There's always the X factor player with Tip who grabs the headlines, and you'd know him on the street if you saw him and everything. And they're not there. Like, you look at their scoring thing. I know you've done the stats to the end on them all, but like, anything I remember just seems to be Jason Ford 8 frees, Jason Ford 7 frees, Jason Ford something. And it's kind of a recurring pattern. So if you're Cork, you just stop giving them frees that are handy, cut out their defenders, cut out the lads who are getting the ball into the forwards. And it shouldn't be, a bad day for Cork, really. But, I suppose it can go either way on the day when it's so big, when there's so much riding on it. Like, essentially your season is over in 70 minutes at the end of this. So, one team has to come out in the end. I don't think it's going to be maybe as close a game as some people might think, unless a different Tip turns up. But they've been poor this season so far, generally.
And the thing you mentioned with Jason Ford and Gerald O'Connor, the other free taker as well, that's taking frees for Tip, they haven't really hit the lights out when you look at games gone by and free taking shot accuracies and things like that. It's always been, when I do Tip stats and stuff like that, other than the Waterford game, which was an improvement, I would say that. When you look at the Limerick game in the Championship, the Limerick game in the League, and the Clare League game in the semi-final, I think the free accuracy was under 60%, which isn't good enough for senior hurling. So that's a worrying sign from a Tipperary point of view. There's a question coming in from FBA lad about Pat Ryan. Do you lads think that the Limerick game saved Pat Ryan's job? I'll throw that one to you first, I suppose. Like, there is an argument there, Dave, because it looked at the first two games that Cork lost, it looked like they were going out of the Munster Championship without a whimper, but now that Limerick game seems to have changed the perspective more than anything in the Cork hurlers.
Yeah, like, I didn't even think, I suppose, of that saving his job. Maybe, like, it'd be harsh on him at the same time to get rid of him if they had lost to Limerick. I know they've obviously, bad days before that, but you kind of have to give him a chance at the same time to get players in and get used to his system and his way of playing. But geez, maybe now that it's said, it might actually have saved his job. FPL lad, I don't want to know about Fantasy Premier League anymore. I've quit on that. So, yeah, maybe it did. Like, I don't know, how ruthless are you down in Cork with getting rid of managers these days?
I wouldn't say we're too ruthless now ever since the strike days. Like, I'm thinking of the hurling manager, Jimmy Barry Murphy, who was let go after, I think, 3 or 4 years. Kieran Kingston got a second term after his first term. John Boyler, I think, lasted only, 2 seasons in the job, 18 and 19, and won one Munster title. So maybe he was let go pretty early. But to be honest with you, Pat Ryan's still in another year of his contract. I firmly believe, even if they did lose to Limerick, I still think the Cork County Board would have given them another year. And there is some perspectives in Cork that if Pat Ryan is not going to save Cork hurling, the Cork seniors, that is, who else is there too? Yes, there's arguments for Ben O'Connor that does well at the under-20s, but this guy, Pat Ryan, won 2 under-20 All-Irelands in a row. Like, he's definitely the right man for the job. And I suppose the Limerick game in many other standpoints as well, not just for the players and the management, but just to see the crowd from Cork just to get behind their team like that. The Blackrock end, I never seen it erupt as much as it did for Patrick Horgan's penalty. Do you think that could be a thing that drives these Cork players on to a victory in Thurles this Sunday?
Yeah, you do need that kind of thing. It doesn't work for every county. Obviously, you can get your phenomenal, once in a season, or like, say, when Westmeath beat Wexford, we thought this is going to be some stepping stone now. And then the next week went out and Antrim hammered us off the park in Mullingar. But for a seasoned, more experienced maybe side like Cork, that might be what spurs them on and gets them over the line against Tip, because they'll know how to use that. Like, it's not, beating Limerick obviously was phenomenal and it's amazing, but it's not like it's the first time the Cork have had, a successful day in hurling when they really needed it. It's a bit different. So yeah, it could be the actual thing that spurs them on. Something might just a click that wasn't clicking for Pat Ryan. Because even though, they weren't shooting the lights out so far this season, they still weren't. I didn't think they were horrific. I know I didn't get to see every minute of every game, but it could be the thing that spurs them on. They might just need a little bit of luck as well. Like, there's a lot of referees who mightn't have gone straight to give a penalty for that against Limerick getting into stoppage time, at the end of a game, even though it certainly absolutely was a stonewall. So maybe it might be the thing that spurs them on. Like, Tip haven't had any of that, and it's too late now. They can't buy it before this game. So yeah, I still, like, as I said, it's all, for me, it's pointing towards Cork anyway, but I don't know. Suppose you might have the same feeling, maybe, being a Cork man.
Yeah, I'm usually pessimistic about Cork Board Identity, but to be honest, I think they should win this game against Tipperary. I just think Tip, there might be a bite back from them, but Cork, with that kind of momentum behind them after the Limerick game last week, and with the stats to back it up as well from the last few games, I just feel like there's no way that Tip go on and win this game. And if Cork produce the same intensity as they did against Limerick, I don't think Tip could stop them, honestly. I know it's a Thurles, but there's that kind of argument as well. But before we get out to the Clare and Waterford game, there was actually a post on the Premier View podcast saying that there is potentially going to be more Cork supporters in Thurles rather than Tip. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, not surprising. When your tails are up. Like, and Cork they've always been good supporters. They've always been strong supporters. Like, even, I'm trying to think, obviously having family down in Cork, I've been down there a good few times. You'd always enjoy the games. They always travel well. And when you're playing essentially in an early version of a final, which this game is going to be, everyone wants to be there. Like, if your season's going to end, you may as well at least have been at the last game. And Tip are flat. They're not great. They're not enjoyable really to watch. Cork have the tails up. So yeah, Cork people, you definitely want to travel. The weather's going to be decent, hopefully. They're expecting a fast game, in Semple Stadium. They'll want to see their team come out with a win and win comfortably, and they want to be there to see it. And then that leads on to the next day, hopefully. So, yeah.
There is a scenario, though, we're both particularly Cork win for this, but there is a scenario where Cork could be massively hurt in terms of getting out of Munster this season, and that is if Waterford managed to beat Clare at this game in Ennis Sunday at 2 p.m. on RT2. Like, the Munster Championship, there's all sorts of twists and turns in this, but I'm saying that a Waterford win could hurt Cork in the sense that if Waterford win this game and Clare beat Tipperary on the final match day, and Limerick beat Waterford on the final match day as well, it would leave Clare at 4 points, Cork at 4 points, Waterford at 5, and Limerick at 6. Because Clare beat Cork and Páirc Uí Chaoimh earlier on in the season, Clare will progress in third place. So I think every Cork person would want a Clare win here, but this is a tight one to call. Waterford are no gimmies. They haven't proved it this season. They are a very good side. They haven't proved under Davy Fitz this year, despite having a bit of a low last season. So this should be a tight game.
Yeah, it should, and I think we all saw the video of Davy geeing them all up, going into the ground there the last day as well. Waterford are kind of, in some ways, no offense here, obviously, they're a little bit like the Cork footballers. There's names who've been there forever and eternity, and you're wondering in some kind of ways how they're still there and nobody else has come through. But Davy was under a little bit of pressure. That win over Cork and then the draw with Tip, wasn't it? Has really kind of transformed a little bit. It's a tough one to predict. Like, Clare have been through two, what would you say, titanic battles already, losing to Limerick and then beating Cork, wasn't it? Yeah, they were the two. You've two teams who could cancel each other out. You could end up with a very cagey kind of affair, but I don't think Munster hurling is really built around that. So I'd be expecting big things from both sides. I do like Clare. I've always, since I was at the 2013, I think it was All-Ireland final, whenever Shane O'Donnell got that hat-trick, I've always had a bit of love for him. He's still flying. He still poses a great threat. Mark Rogers obviously is pivotal as well. They maybe need a little bit more, obviously, than Aidan McCarthy. Something not going to freeze. They're going to need obviously more than that. They'll need to get more from play. Waterford will, try and hound them as much as they can. Davy will have them riled up like Rottweilers. So it could be the bigger of the games, maybe of the weekend. I just hope they don't cancel each other out. That would be the only thing, because there could be so much emphasis put on knocking the heads off each other that, it could be a poor scoring affair. But I don't know. I'm not Davy's biggest fan at all, but there's just something, when they're on the run, they tend to be fairly good. And they were so bad recently, like that. There was no surprise that his name was in the spotlight, and now suddenly they're, it just takes a couple of games to get them back. So yeah, I hope it's a good game. I hope they don't cancel each other out. But I know you've obviously, from a core point, got your preferred winner.
Yeah, you'd be hoping from a Cork point of view that Clare go on and win it. But going back to Cork and Tip, there was a question that actually came in from Denise. If you were Liam Cahill, who would you put on Brian Hayes? He was great in the last few matches, and definitely he was good against Limerick. And I suppose you could ask that out of any of the Tip defenders, who will go on who. Like, you have Craig Morgan there, you have Ronan Maher there, but you have some speedsters and some technically gifted hurlers in that Cork forward line. So Tip will find it difficult to get their man marking jobs right. And that's another aspect of the game where Tip will struggle going back to that.
Yeah, like you could put Ronan Maher on him, obviously, or put your most experienced or your most physical or whatever, and just try and annoy him and get at him. But as you said, Brian Hayes is fantastic, but he's not the single Cork attack on his own. That attack is pretty, when it wants to score, it's well able to score. 328 against Limerick, is not easily done. I don't know, I don't think you can single out Brian Hayes and put someone on him. I think if you're Liam Cahill, you hope your six backs have done enough and are fit enough and strong enough to stay with them, and that they'll give them a hard time for a while as well, and just try and knock them off their perch easily enough. But yeah, I get what Denise is asking. Brian Hayes obviously is, making headlines, but there's plenty of Cork lads who can make headlines, and it doesn't have to come from the six forwards, around midfield as well. There's nothing to say that the lads there won't be chipping in with scores as well. So I think Tip are under massive pressure. I think Cork blitz them.
Yeah, definitely so. And even go back to Clare, Waterford, Waterford getting, as you mentioned there, winning a draw in their first 2 games against Cork and Tip respectively. Do you think from a Waterford point of view, if they don't get out of Munster this year, is there a question that will they ever get out of this Munster group? Because it's so competitive each and every season, and they have performed to the best of their ability in this Munster Championship, but they've got more points than they've ever got in a Munster group, as far as I know anyway. So this is probably a big opportunity for Davy Fitzman to seize that opportunity and get into the knockout stage to the All-Ireland at least.
Yeah, it's only kind of, when you say it like that, the first thing that came to my head was like Italy in the Six Nations. It's like for every step of improvement that Italy make in the Six Nations, the other teams make 4 or 5. And it looks great when like Italy get a try or 2 in a game, or they beat Wales or somebody, and then the rest of them, they'll still blitz them. So Waterford are kind of at that where this might be great under Davy, where, yeah, it's a win and a draw and it's, things are getting better. But Clare, Limerick, Cork, maybe not Tip, but certainly others, in Munster are, maybe flying further ahead of them. So, yeah, they need to win this one to get out. If they don't, then, yeah, you could be looking at that, story that's written in years to come, where Waterford constantly were the bridesmaids, but never the bride, constantly stuck in Munster, never able to get past it. So, yeah, as much as when you say it that way, I suppose, as much as Davy is maybe riding the crest of a wave at the minute with the win and the draw and things are looking rosier, it's very easy for the tide to come in and pull it all from underneath them. And this weekend, it could have a big effect on Waterford's Munster and the rest of their season as well.
Definitely. So would you be backing Waterford to win this game potentially in Ennis, or do you think Clare will win it?
Oh, it's realistically, I think Clare should beat them. I think the forwards have just too much for the backs, particularly. I think Shane O'Donnell, when he gets going, could be great. I'm going to say Clare. Yeah, I think they'll just have enough to get past them, and yeah, Waterford could be a win, a draw, and a loss, then 1-1-1. So I'll go with Clare.
Yeah, and it'll be difficult for Waterford if it does come to fruition. You have to play Limerick the next week then, and that's going to be a difficult assignment, definitely. And I'm going to go for a Clare win as well at home in Ennis. So that's the Munster Championship wrapped up, and we'll move on to the Leinster Championship now. And as we mentioned at the start of the show, it's so unpredictable. Dublin at the top at the moment with 5 points, Kilkenny in second with 4, and then you have Wexford, Galway both on 3 points, Antrim on 2, and Carlow on 1. And Carlow's draw against Kilkenny has set it wide open, definitely. But there is a scenario where Carlow could get relegated this weekend. More on that later. But we will move on to the first game, and it is live on GA Go this weekend. It is Dublin against Kilkenny in the Leinster Senior Hurling Championship on Saturday at 6 p.m. Jason, is this a big opportunity for the Dubs to get to a Leinster final and beat Kilkenny finally?
Yeah, if you told me a couple of months ago that Dublin were going to be in this position, I probably would have laughed a little bit. I was commentating in the sports campus on a different game, and over my head in the studio behind were Dublin dissecting the destruction that they suffered against Limerick and also getting their team photos taken. I'd say they spent 10 minutes looking at the game and the other hour getting their photos taken. So I was kind of like, well, these lads clearly aren't too fussed about things. They're just going to toddle their way through Leinster, see where it comes out. But Micheál Donoghue and the lads have obviously done something to get them going. You would expect Kilkenny to win, given that the Carlow thing was such, from their standard, a failure. And in some people on Twitter, I know, calling it like a dark day for Kilkenny and all this. So Kilkenny should, come back bouncing. But Dublin are flying. And they do need more than Donald Burke freeze to get them over the line. And Kilkenny haven't come back. Actually, is it 2 draws? They drew before that as well, didn't they?
They drew against Galway as well, so yeah, 2 draws.
Yeah, so they really need to win. Just to, not. They don't want to let things, slip away too much and give Dublin all the limelight as well. A Dublin win would be phenomenal for Leinster hurling, and I think for the All-Ireland as a whole. So I still think Kilkenny have enough. I don't think they could do 2 draws and a defeat. That would be that would be like story headline making of itself. So I think Kilkenny should get past them, but Dublin is Dublin, and they're certainly no more than like in the Munster Championship when a team is going well, putting up decent scores. You can't look too far past them either. So maybe it's just Dublin's year. Maybe, who knows?
Possibly so, and it could be Dublin's best opportunity to beat Kilkenny in a long time. They haven't beaten them in the Championship, as far as I know, since 2013. That replay where Danny Sutcliffe got the goal in 2013. So it's a long time ago, and Dublin need to get a win against Kilkenny. But just the standpoint from the Cats a minute here, like the Carlow game, there was a few elements of it where it was kind of they lost it was a bit of complacency coming into Kilkenny's game. You look at the sending off for Killian Doyle, you look at the free that equalised it for Carlow through Barty Kavanagh, the one where Tom Phelan throws the slitter into the crowd. Like I looked at that incident, I was like, what is he doing? But is it almost like Kilkenny were kind of going into the game against Carlow and going into the game against Galway beforehand thinking we're going to win this and we might go at maybe 50-60% and we'll be fine here? Or do you think just Carlow and Galway performed to their utmost ability and got draw, particularly Carlow, and got the draw out of the game?
Yeah, you have to ask though as well. Like, I know we can't keep looking back at the past, but if Brian Cody was in charge, would any of those things be allowed to happen? Like, I maybe it's just a change in culture in Kilkenny hurling under new management and everything. I know it's not that new as such, but I don't think a few years ago that would have been allowed to have happened. I think chucking the ball into the crowd, you would have found yourself very quickly dragged off the pitch, battered to death, and put on the bench the next day. I don't think that would have been accepted at all. Little bit needless, a little bit kind of, I don't know, is it showing a touch of fear that a Kilkenny player needs to do that? Like, no offense to Carlow, but like, do you need to do that really? You shouldn't be under that kind of stress or strain. You should be coasting through these games. Like, there's no reason that Carlow should be doing this to anybody of the kind of historical standard of Kilkenny. So I don't think there is maybe, you're probably right. There is probably a little bit of, we only need to play 50-60% to beat these lads. And if we only beat them by a few, so what? We get the points. But there's another side to that I still think Brian Cody would never let that happen. If they're 10 points ahead with 5 minutes left, he wants them to win by 20. Like, that's just the way it is. Like, it's a ruthlessness that's maybe they need to get back, that Kilkenny of old would have had. And now it's great at the other side. It's great for Leinster hurling that Carlow are getting a draw, and that it's not a foregone conclusion that Kilkenny and Galway are going to sail through as usual. So yeah, look, it's not the worst thing in the world, but it is surprising, and it was bizarre. It was a bizarre moment, and the scoreline at the end, when you look at it and you're just like, it's 120 apiece, as opposed to Carlow just lobbing long balls and like we did against Wexford and getting 4 goals. Like, they actually matched them score for score, which is credit to them. Hats off to them that they did it and they stuck with it. But a surprising Kilkenny season so far.
It is definitely. Just on Dublin for a bit, they have 3 games played, 5 points on the board, no defeat, 2 wins and a draw against Wexford, obviously. But against Kilkenny and Galway, there is a huge opportunity for Dublin to win those games. And I've been on podcasts so many times with Seamus and with Aaron, and the thing that frustrates them most is they perform well against Carlow, they perform well against Antrim, beating them pretty handily, and then when they come up against Kilkenny or Galway, they're just kind of content, if that's the right word to lose those sorts of games. And you look at the Clare game last year, and it was almost like there was no oomph in them in the quarter-final either. Is this an opportunity for the Dublin players and Micheál Donoghue himself to right those wrongs? Because there's outstanding players in this Dublin team. Conor Burke in midfield, Donald Burke in the forwards, Fergal Whiteley's decent when he does play. Keane O'Sullivan's a very good player. Paul Crummey's very good in the forwards. So is this an opportunity for Dublin to get that win under their belt that they've been craving for such a long time?
Yeah, it is. And Micheál Donoghue will draw on his own, Galway experiences as well to motivate them and get them moving, and try and get them over the line, because at this stage it is about literally getting them over the line. Like, it is in their own hands. Kilkenny, he won't be too pushed about the fact that it's Kilkenny. He'll just be looking at his game plan. Let's keep it the way we've been going. I think the Wexford, the draw was a bit frustrating for them. It really could be 3 wins from 3. It's probably ekes at them a little bit. But yeah, certainly they will have to be at their best. Like, there's no doubt about that. Kilkenny aren't going to play this as bad, or, you know, as weak as they did against Carlow. So it's great, I suppose, for Dublin hurling as well. As frustrating that it is when you see the footballers win all the time, it is great for Dublin hurling that they're getting back there a little bit. Me O'Donoghue does well, bringing in lads from different clubs, even like where I teach, like, is not far from Luke and Sarsfield. It's nice to see a few of them, and used to have Liam Rush from Pats and Palmerstown as well. So it's good to see Dublin hurling coming back, because Leinster kind of needs a bit more competition, and this is probably where they're going to get it from. I don't think Carlow, unfortunately, are going to suddenly turn into the Barcelona of hurling in Leinster after a draw with Kilkenny. But yeah, I still think Dublin are going to have to do a lot to get past this Kilkenny. They won't be allowed to play like that again, like they did against Carlow. That was not great at all, really.
So are you backing Kilkenny to win this game, or do you think if Dublin produce as good as they're capable of doing, is there a chance that the Dubs do it?
There is a chance. Like, I couldn't rule them out. But I don't know, maybe it's they're just having a bad run and a bad few games, but I don't think Kilkenny can do that again. Surely they can't do that again. Like, that's like Westmeath against Wexford last year. It's that flash in the pan moment that a weaker, inverted commas, team gets one over, gets something off, you know, a Titanic kind of team. I don't think Kilkenny can be that bad again. So I think Kilkenny will win, not by a lot, but they'll probably win.
I'm going to go for a shocker. I'm going to go for Dublin.
Nice.
I'm going to do it. I think there's something different about this Dublin team, and the way that me O'Donoghue has got them prepared. I just think, and it's a bigger opportunity than many people would have envisaged with Dublin beating Kenny over the last few seasons. As well as that, there are rumours that this game is going to be a sellout. And that probably suggests to me that Dublin hurling folk will get behind their team this weekend.
Yeah.
So I think there could be a shock at the cards here. I think Dublin could easily beat Kilkenny and board and seal a Leinster final spot. And you look at the last 2 games, Antrim against Galway in Corgan Park at 2 p.m. on Saturday. Could Antrim pull it off again? I know they got hammered by Dublin last weekend, but their last home game against Wexford, they beat them, obviously. Galway are not going well at all. So is there an opportunity to Antrim pull off the shock here?
Yeah, Antrim have had such a strange kind of campaign. Often they got blitzed, then they won, then they got blitzed again, I think. So they're a strange one. There's a bit like some of the teams. Is it Young Cunning? Isn't that his name?
Conal Cunning, yeah.
Yeah, they kind of rely on maybe excessively. Now, at the same time, you know, they're not a team that has thousands of players to choose from. They have to find their star players. Galway, is it in Galway, this one, or where is this one?
It's in Corgan Park in Antrim.
Oh, fair enough. Be an interesting one for Galway to go up to play with the housing estate around them. So it'll be a different one for them. Like, I don't know if Galway are really that. Don't find Antrim. They're not that far down that they will get anything other than a confident win, like between Nyland, Glennon, Concannon, Whelan, Lee, Mannion. Like, they've plenty of names you can rattle off, and I think they should have too much. As much as the Leinster Senior Hurling Championship is making very little sense this year, Galway should have enough to get by Antrim realistically. It would be fantastic, and as I said, I think Kilkenny will beat Dublin, but on the record, I actually want Dublin to win. But I would think that Galway will have too much for Antrim. Surely a comfortable victory for them. I think Shefflin has too much at his disposal to let Antrim beat them.
Is there an element to this Galway team that they haven't been going well this season, though? Like, in the league, they were very, very inconsistent. They were very poor. Against Wexford, it seemed like even when Wexford went down to 14 men after Keane Byrne got sent off, it was almost like Galway really underperformed even in that period of time. And is there a question mark about Henry Shefflin that as his time as Galway manager goes on, they get worse? Is that an argument to put forward?
Yeah, and I think he tries to paper over it. I know it's my own county again, but when I was down in Salthill at the opening league game against Westmeath, I thought he used that game as a way to try to paper over a lot of cracks by going 19 points ahead and then bringing on Conor Whelan to make the scoreline look so emphatic. And even all the Galway media who were beside me were like, this is such a pointless exercise. They were like, get the young lads playing, give them a go, have a full in-depth squad built for championship time when you're actually going to need it, because he's not, I wouldn't say he's overly popular in Galway. I get sense, particularly from going to a few games like I'm in around the media and stuff, he's under pressure to win big time, because he will get the door very quickly if he doesn't produce something this season. So they haven't been great. You are right. He annoys me a little bit, Shefflin, in his attitude, particularly like that Westmeath one really irked a lot of Galway and Westmeath people. Like, it was so unnecessary, to bring on Conor Whelan and do that. I know his argument is we have to beat who's in front of us, but yeah, I don't think they're playing bad enough though to warrant a defeat against Antrim. I think there's still more than enough there. There's more than enough names in that team that could rattle off plenty scores each. I hope Antrim gives them a good game, but I can only see this going one way, I'm afraid, and it's very much maroon. So
yeah, much like Westmeath, I suppose. But to be honest, like I think Antrim could put up a test, and I do think Galway will win the game. And I agree with you on that prediction. But just to play devil's advocate for a bit from a Galway standpoint, if they were to lose this game and to end up at 3 points, only 2 points clear of Carlow, at last spot in Leinster, that must be an absolute disaster if it was to happen for Galway. And I suppose at the end of the season, that would be almost like Henry Shefflin, you're out the door.
Yeah, he'll go. I feel whether if he doesn't win something, he's gone. I don't see the Galway public putting up with him. I don't know if I was only chatting to my friend here. Like, we were chatting about Galway there, and the whole team bonding thing. I think Cork had something similar where half the lads came back in a different plane. So it's not exactly the best team bonding exercise in the world. But if he doesn't win something, Leinster ideally is probably his realistic target. He'll be gone. Like, I don't see him hanging around. Like, what are they keeping him for, really? As you said, it seems like things are getting worse the longer he's there. I don't know if the players are really playing for him that much. They still are Galway. They'll still beat Antrim. But long term, he doesn't seem like he is the answer to their prayers, really. That I don't know, is it just the fact that he's a Kilkenny man and Galway have a lot of dislike towards him personally because of past experiences? But I think the next Galway manager will probably be somebody a bit more internal, shall we say.
Yeah, like that's what Seamus was talking about in this very podcast last year about Henry Shefflin actually being in Galway management. It's almost like he's there as a Kilkenny kind of agent to tell the Kilkenny players, okay, who to watch: Evan Nyland, Gavin Lee, Ronan Glenn, and whoever. And it's just like, it's such a pointless exercise for Galway, and it's really, really poor from their standpoint. And they haven't won a Leinster title since 2018. If they were to win it this year, that's 7 years without it.
Well, what have they actually got out of his reign, really? Like, very little. There's names that are coming through, but those names, I reckon, would have come true regardless of whether he was there or not. Like, it doesn't take a brain surgeon to spot the talent in a team. So, as a collective, I don't think he's brought much, if anything, to Galway, bar hammering teams who are far below them in ability. So, yeah, I don't see him lasting. Like, you'd want to win the All-Ireland to have any hope of getting another contract to Galway, I'd say.
Definitely so. Even a Leinster title wouldn't suffice for poor Henry. But we'll both predict that Galway will win this game against Antrim. And if they lose, you'd be extremely worried as a Galway fan. Going to the last game, and speaking of teams that do drop the ball are capable of it, Wexford are definitely capable of it. They're going to Carlow this weekend on Sunday at 3 p.m. It couldn't happen again, could it, Jason? Carlow to beat Wexford. Can it happen?
Yeah, it could. And I'd only love to see it. I don't know, are Wexford over-reliant on like Lee and Roy O'Connor and who else we got, like Mark Fanning? Like, are they over-reliant on the same lads? Like, have Carlow got another, 70 minutes of magic from Marty Kavanagh or somebody? I don't know. It's the one game that stands out where you think Wexford have already suffered, what's the word we used, the ignominy of losing to Westmeath. There's no reason to say they can't lose to Carlow as well. Like, Carlow would be about at this moment in time where Westmeath would be. Carlow probably even slightly better. So, yeah, like I'd love to see it happen. I'd love to think that Carlow could keep the tails up from the last day from what they did against Kilkenny, and they'd surely be looking at now going, well, sure, we got a draw against Kilkenny. Wexford are not as good as Kilkenny, so we can definitely beat these lads. So you wouldn't know. I'd love to see it happen. That might be the one that I just go for the bizarre kind of Carlow victory.
You're going for Carlow, so to win this game, you're expecting Wexford to drop the ball again?
Yeah, they've done it plenty of times before. There's no reason they can't do it again. So let's go for Carlow. Go on to Carlow.
Some prediction. We'll see if that's right in the next few weeks. But with Wexford, like it's almost like Seamus really made a very good point. And what's the difference between Dublin and Wexford? Dublin kind of, and he said himself, that Dublin kind of keep the same level of performance, a 6 out of 10, a 7 out of 10, nearly every single game. Wexford produce, let's say, an 8 or a 9 against a Galway, a Dublin on their day, and a Kilkenny. But then they can drop to a 3 or a 4 against Carlow, Westmeath, or Antrim. So it's just a weird kind of enigma with Wexford at the moment. And you wouldn't actually be surprised if Carlow got the win, especially at home and Netwatch Cullen Park this weekend.
Yeah, like Wexford have that terrible complacency thing about them as well when they get ahead, particularly against a weaker team. Like they were 19 points ahead of us going into the second half, and we turned around and won by 2. Carlow should kind of look at that and think, even if we do go behind, these lads have a tendency to take the foot off the gas and, let's try and get ourselves back into the game. I don't think Carlow are going to come out and, fire another 120 and blitz Wexford all of a sudden. But I think if they were clever enough to stay in the game for long enough, then who knows how the last quarter could go. It could be another Kilkenny all over again. As long as they just try and stay in it and keep close the whole way through, they could have the firepower at the end just to topple them, because Wexford do panic. They always get scared in the last part of the game when things might be going against them. They're under the cosh a little bit. They're not great at dragging themselves. Lee Chin is great at dragging them out of it. But if you can't get Lee Chin to drag them out of it on his own, there's very few other lads who are going to stand up and say, I'll do it. So that's where Carlow maybe could find it. I'm certainly not saying Carlow are going to win comfortably at all, but they could nick a famous last minute winner from somewhere. They could knock another sideline over or something, who knows. But yeah, I just for the crack, I'm going to go for Carlow. I just love to see them win again.
I think everyone in the neutral standpoint would love Carlow to get the result this weekend. You're predicting a Carlow win. Look, I predicted Dublin to beat Kilkenny. I'm not going for another shock. I'll just be playing the safe option here. I'm going to go for Wexford to win it. But honestly, wouldn't be surprised if Carlow turned them over. It's just the common team with Wexford at this particular moment in time. But that's the Leinster Hurling Championship wrapped up. We now move on to the Joe McDonagh Cup, and this is a group viewing for Jason here. Westmeath down 5th here, but we have Laois at the top with 6 points. Offaly Kerry both on 2, or both on 4, should I say. Both in joint second. They play each other this weekend, as seen this weekend's fixtures below. You have Down in 4th, you have Westmeath in 5th, and you have Meath in 6th place. And moving on to the games there, if I can I'll just take the table off and we'll move on to the game. So Offaly against Kerry is the main game this weekend in the Joe McDonagh Cup live on Clubber on Sunday at 1 p.m. And you feel like, Jason, the winner of this game is probably going to be in that final against Laois.
Yeah, Offaly, of course, have the screeny effect, as Will O'Callaghan is now calling it as well. Like he's been some fine, to be fair. Kerry, yeah, they came to Mullingar and beat us by 6 comfortably without Conway. I think as great as Kerry are at the moment in terms of, building themselves in hurling, I think Offaly and particularly like Adam Screeney and Rigney and all them, they'll have just too much for them. As even though they're neighbours, and I have great, love-hate with Offaly people generally, some of them I work with great old banter, but it is brilliant to see them getting some results again and getting themselves back up a little bit, even if it is to Joe McDonagh and it's historically not their level. It is great to see them back up and running again. And to be fair, it is also great to see Kerry hurling getting on the board a little bit as well. And they are the 2 best teams in the competition. They Offaly beat Westmeath playing the entire game minus 25 seconds with 14 men. So they won't have any problems playing against Kerry. Kerry will find it a bit tricky, I think, going to Offaly to play a team with such a kind of high stature as such. It should be a good game, but I expect Offaly to come out on top. I think as long as Adam Screeney performs, I reckon they'll be fine.
Yeah, Adam Screeney was outstanding last night, obviously, for the game against Kilkenny in the under 20. Yeah. So was Shane Rigney as well. So they have a brilliant amount of young players coming through, and they'll probably go for an Offaly win in that game as well. And moving on to the next game, and this is at the other end of the table, Westmeath against Meath at 6 p.m. on Saturday in the Joe McDonagh Cup. Surprising this is on club or anything like that. As far as I know, it's not even being streamed anywhere. I don't know. Would you know, Jason? Is it being streamed anywhere? Or?
We have it on ERV TV, all right. It's like I'm not in Joe Fortune's good books at the moment these days.
Bring up the table now again, because it's a crucial game. This,
like it's like I wrote an article a couple of weeks ago for the local paper in Westmeath. I wasn't personally attacking Joe Fortune by any means, but he did say something after the Kerry game that irked me a little bit in the interview we did with him, where he said that was Westmeath's level. And that bothered me a little bit because that's not Westmeath's level. Like, we are far, far more capable of, like, that table. When you put it up earlier, it's the first time I'd actually seen the table, and I went, Jesus, it's actually way worse looking than I thought. It's like, as a Man United fan, looking at the goal difference of -3 and thinking, like, what is going on? Like, that's not at all where we are. Like, you don't have All-Star nominees when you're 5th in the Joe McDonagh. Like, so there's something amiss somewhere, and yeah, Joe Fortune is not my biggest. I'm not in his Christmas card list, put it that way, at the moment. I asked a lot of questions about why there are so many good players in Westmeath. Why is there such a disconnect and such an issue playing for the county against, no offense to the teams in the Joe McDonagh, but we should be in Leinster, even if we are getting beaten by bigger teams or whatever. We should be up there. Meath are the whipping boys of the Joe McDonagh, but I can't tell you that Westmeath are definitely going to win this one, because I don't know, and I don't mean the Westmeath players. I mean, I just don't see that there's a confidence there. The lads look so flat, and the Kerry game was an eye-opener. Like, I thought, Joe Fortune's thing in the league was, after the goal game, when I stood outside the tunnel with him, he said, you can write in the papers, write that these lads want to play the big teams, even if they are getting beaten, because they'll learn from it. And when it comes to Joe McDonagh time, they'll be better for it. Joe McDonagh is nearly over for us. And at the moment, we're playing essentially a relegation game. And it just isn't sitting right with anybody I've talked to in Westmeath, not even in the media, just in hurling circles in general. It's not sitting with anybody. Like Killian Doyle, Jogger Doyle, like, we have so many names that are top hurlers, like, and I don't mean just for the club, like for Westmeath, and it's just not working out right. Like, Kerry was, no offense to Kerry, but it was an embarrassment for us, for them to come to Mullingar and stroll past us. Like, they literally, like, I know they got the goal near the end to make it look very comfortable, but they were far better than the 3-point win. Meath are, they're here, but they're going back, basically, unless they can pull something out of the bag at the weekend. Like, I think Westmeath will win, but I'm not sitting here thinking, it's going to be a 30-point hammer. And if it is, great. But we're not at the races at the moment, and there's something not right, and I'm not sure what it is, but I think we need to win. We need to win well. We need to play well, just to get something back in the county, because it's not going great these days.
And the thing is, as well, would it be right to say this, Jason? The last game is against Laois, and they're top of the Joe McDonagh. So
yeah.
It's crucial that Westmeath win this game this weekend, especially against a B team that, no offence, but they did lose their manager before the championship even began.
Yeah.
So if Westmeath don't win this game, like, you question what on earth is going on. So it's a big game.
Yeah, like I've been asking the question for a couple of weeks, and I'm not on my own asking them. I just decided I'll put them on paper in some form and actually ask them, as opposed to chatting among people. And Laois are, like, as I said, it is comparing like United in the table to Arsenal or Liverpool or someone. The Laois are 50, 60 points better off than us, like, in difference as well. Like, that's not reality for us in some ways. It is, because it's there and you can see it. But in wider terms, it's not reality at all. Like, this is not Westmeath hurling. This is not the team that, won the first Christy Ring. And as generally, as I said in the article before, we work in progression in inches rather than miles. And we're happy to take an inch here and there as long as we keep taking them. But it just feels like that for the last inch we've taken, we've gone back 3-4 miles, and there's something wrong somewhere. I don't know what it is, but we have to win this weekend, because Laois are probably going to beat us at the way things are.
That's the thing as well. And just and the league as well, you were very good at Mullingar against Limerick.
Yeah.
You probably could have beat Tip in Semple Stadium as well. So, like, it would be a disaster for them to go back to the Christy Ring. I don't think it will happen, though. I think they should have enough to beat Meath, but we'll have to see this weekend. Jack with a comment here about Clubber, fair play to Clubber for showing these type of games that would never make it to television. And exactly, Jack. Clubber's a great service, and it definitely is. And obviously, ERV TV, as you mentioned there, Jason, showing the Westmeath game at the weekend. The last game is Laois against Down on Saturday at 3 p.m. on Clubber. To be honest, it's not that Ronan Sheehan side are tactically inept or something like that. They are mid-table and doing really well in this competition, but Laois are a serious train at the moment. They've won all 3 games so far, and they probably are going to win a 4th.
Yeah, I would say so, yeah. And just when you had the table up there, it's only after kind of hitting me that our only point is the last second equaliser against Down in Ballycran last week or the other week. Like, if that didn't go over from Jogger, like, we're on 0 points with Meath and fighting them for scoring difference. Like, that is... Anyway, I'm not going to go into that because I'll only start ranting again. Laois should comfortably beat Down. Down are, to be fair to them, they were good against Westmeath. There's plenty of promise in terms of scoring for them. Defensively, they're a little bit ropey. But if they could get the ball up, they might get, decent score against Laois. But I think Laois will hammer in goals fairly rapidly, and I can only see that one going one way. It's Laois to stay top, absolutely.
Yeah, it's probably going to be Laois Offaly final, the way things are going at the moment. But that's the Joe McDonagh Cup sorted. We move on to the final round in the lower tier hurling competition. So the Christy Ring starting off with, and I will show you the table for the Christy Ring as we go into the last round of games. So at the top, you have Kildare on 8 points. Derry and London both on 6. Obviously, Derry throwing the spanner in the works last week by beating London in Owen Bay last week. Wicklow and Tyrone are playing each other, but essentially it's a nothing game because Sligo are at the bottom and they cannot catch Tyrone and Wicklow because of mathematics and stuff like that. So Sligo, as far as I know, are already down to the Nicky Rackard. So it is all eyes on the top 3 here. And the main game there at the bottom of the screen there is London against Kildare on Saturday at 1 p.m. Sligo are playing Derry in the other game at 1 p.m. And if London managed to beat Kildare and Derry beat Sligo as expected, all 3 sides will be on 8 points. And then it goes down to points difference. At the moment, Kildare are on 66. Derry are on 26 and London are on 40. So Derry would miss out if that was the case, but obviously they could run a muck on Sligo considering they're bottom of the table. So quite an interesting weekend awaits here, Jason, especially at that time on Saturday at 1 p.m.
Yeah, I obviously have a bit of a graph for London with doing a lot of the international GA, and I know a couple of lads over there. It's great for them, and it's great that they've kind of found their hurling level as well. I didn't realise the scenario was actually as tense and tight as you kind of showed there. Derry should put up a bit of a cricket score, I'd say, against Sligo. So London would have to beat Kildare and beat them, well enough. It's going to be fascinating when you look at how the difference could go plus and minus if the results went the way that they could. There's nothing to say they won't. So yeah, I would obviously be rooting for London, and I have a couple of friends up in the Derry hurling as well. So I'd love to see the two of them. I'd love to see London in particular try and get through. Kildare, though, to be fair to them, it's good that their hurling side is producing. They've been threatening for quite a while. Was it David Herity or someone in there? They were threatening for a while to sort of open up a little bit with hurling, and it kind of fell by the wayside and it never really materialised. So it would be great for them to win. It'd be great for them to come up to Tailteann Joe McDonagh next year, or someone I can't tell you how much I'd love to see London in the Joe McDonagh next year. It would just be brilliant for London hurling. But I can only see Derry and Kildare winning. I think I would be shocked if London were able to keep things going and turn over a Kildare team who are firing scores all over the place. Sligo are dusted. They're gone anyway. So yeah, I think Derry and Kildare probably are your winners there, I'd say.
It'd probably be Derry, Kildare. I have a soft spot for London as well because there is a player, that London team from near my area in West Cork, called Ronan Crowley from Bandon. So
yeah,
hopefully London reach the final. I'd love them to do it, obviously. Kildare, very good team. Brian Dowling, the former Kilkenny Camogie manager's over them now this year. So it's going to be difficult for them to beat them. And Derry as well, I'd imagine they'll put up a cricket score against Sligo. So it's going to be difficult to see. But I'm going to say Kildare and London make the final and Derry just miss out. I don't think they'll do quite enough against Sligo. Would I expect them to beat by 20 points? Maybe so, but London could easily beat Kildare by about 7, and that'll be enough to get them over the line. So I'm going to go for a London-Kildare final just because I just want London in the final. We'll have to see how it... Exactly. I think most people would want London in the final as well. The Nicky Rackard Cup is going to the last round as well this weekend. They'll bring up the table and the fixtures for that as well. So at the top, you have Donegal are safely over the hills and far away into the Nicky Rackard Cup final on 8 points. It goes down to the first game on the list there, Roscommon against Mayo on Saturday at 1 p.m. The winner will join Donegal in the final. Mayo, a draw is enough for them. Roscommon have to win this game given the points difference in the table there. And as for the bottom of the table, Monaghan need to win against Armagh to keep their hopes alive of staying up in the Nicky Rackard Cup. So an interesting weekend in store, this too.
Yeah, Monaghan obviously down at the bottom are going to need a fairly hefty turnaround if they're going to overtake Armagh. That's a big swing for a team who are on nothing and are crucified by a score difference. The crack is really in the West, with Mayo, Roscommon. It's, I'd say a good article this week would be writing about Mayo and Roscommon and then saying it's actually about the Nicky Rackard hurling as opposed to football. So you have to fancy Mayo. Just a little bit more experience in there, and the fact they've racked up such decent scores so far. Roscommon have, suffered a little bit I'm trying to remember which game it was. They weren't great, but their scoring difference isn't really helping. They are going to need, just to win. And that's it. It doesn't matter if it's by 1 or by 20. But I fancy Mayo to comfortably get past them, I would say.
Yeah, I'd say Mayo will win that game as well. I'd bat Mayo to win the Nicky Rackard Cup from the very start. Yeah. And Donegal have looked very good, in fairness. They have a lot of good scores, but I'd fancy Mayo to get to the final to join them. And finally, onto the Lory Meagher Cup in the hurling sphere before we get on to the Camogie provincial finals and look at the Lory Meagher table. I'll bring it up here. Obviously, for obvious reasons, there's no relegation in this, so it goes down to promotion. And I actually did a few calculations beforehand. Because Longford beat Cavan in match day 4, in the match day before this, Longford have a better head-to-head than Cavan. So if Fermanagh and Longford were to draw their game on Saturday at 1 p.m, then Fermanagh and Longford are in the final regardless of what happens with Cavan's game against Leitrim. I haven't seen a situation like this. Could there be a bit of match fixing in this, Jason, do you think?
Longford lads wouldn't be great at that now. They wouldn't. I could say that because I know I've got family up there, so I can say it. They probably wouldn't be great now at that kind of thing, at organising it. They probably try it and they probably end up winning or losing by a point. So, no, like Longford hurling it's essentially a 3 or 4 club, tournament in camogie circles. They're camogie playing Westmeath most of the time, or used to before COVID. So it's good to see them, back up and running again. I know John Mulhern used to be in there as one of their kind of star players. So don't know if he's I haven't chatted to him in a while, but I would say, yeah, like it'd be handy for them if they just drew. That would be great for the two of them. But someone is probably going to win. That I think Longford could win, and then Cavan, the other one against Leitrim. Yeah, you'd fancy Cavan a little bit. My eyes are obviously down the bottom because Warwickshire and Lancashire have such insane rivalry over in Britain that regardless of whether there's relegation or not, that'll be one of the best games of the weekend because they'll be able to kill each other. So I would have thought Warwickshire would have been much stronger than Lancashire anyway, so I'd expect them to win. But yeah, Longford, I wouldn't put it past them to try and draw against Fermanagh and end up actually winning or losing the game. So that's a slight dig at all the Longford people.
And just the fact that the Longford players, I actually see it from scores and stuff like that. They have a player called Cian Darcy. He plays for Kilruan McDonagh as a Tipperary. So that's quite a coup for Longford to have.
Yeah, Kilruan, it was Dear McCall, the old Westmeath camogie manager last year, was Kilruan McDonagh's as well. Big club down there. Very formidable club. Big coup for them. I didn't actually realise they had somebody like that in the team. Their hurling is, it's kind of probably more mentioned nearly than the football these days. The football is kind of kept a bit quieter up there. It's not going that great. So yeah, hopefully it'd be nice to see them win.
Yeah, exactly. As Denise mentioned there, Cian is immense and he seems to be very good in this campaign as well. And for Kilruan McDonagh in the Tipperary Championship, he was outstanding as well. Before we get on to the football, we'll touch on the Camogie League Finals on the senior level anyway. So Dublin against Kilkenny on Saturday at 4 p.m. Obviously, Dublin won the Division 1B title in the league campaign. Kilkenny did have a great league campaign. They did beat Wexford in the semi-final of this competition though. So there is the brilliant players still in this Kilkenny team. They have Pat Chap clear in charge now, and Dublin have a decent team themselves as well. Ashley Barr, Ashley O'Neill, all them players. You would expect Kilkenny to win it, but Dublin really could put up a test to them.
Yeah, there's such a separation in the camogie between the province and the actual All Ireland that, like, we played Kilkenny in the opening round of Leinster, and it kind of just sort of drifted by because it's sort of that game that you just want to get out of the way. Like, they beat us 321 to 1-8, and we had just won Division 2 in Croke Park a couple of weeks before that. Like, they are a different animal of a team entirely, and they had players back from injury as well who are just, they're a formidable force. It is great that Dublin Camogie is flying high, but Kilkenny will definitely, I would say, have maybe 5 or 6 at least on Dublin in that one. Is Denise from Longford? I have to ask as well.
I think she is, yeah. She's a regular contributor to the podcast, and she says that this game, Kilkenny by 3 or 4 points should have enough, yeah. I would say Kilkenny to win that game, just like Jason as well. And the final camogie game that we're going to discuss is the senior camogie final in Munster between Cork and Waterford at 1:45 live on Clubber. And again, it's great. Clubber showing these types of games as well. This is a repeat, obviously, of the All Ireland final last year, where Cork absolutely went to town on Waterford. But let's not forget, in the Munster Championship last year, Waterford beat Cork. So, in Thurles, is there an opportunity that Waterford could put off a shock here against a decent Cork team?
Yeah, decent Cork team. It's probably slightly better than decent, I would say. But yeah I don't think.
Modest there.
Yeah, I don't think Waterford really, like, it was brilliant to see, what they achieved last year. But like, it's Cork's to lose. I think it will be up there with like Carlow getting a draw against Kilkenny in the hurling, for Cork not to win this one by like 10 or 12, maybe at least. They're far too strong for Waterford, really.
Yeah, I'd have to say that Cork want to win this game as well against the decent Waterford side, obviously. So, yeah, that is the hurling and the camogie wrapped up, and we will move now to the football at the weekend, and there is a lot of action to get through in the football, obviously. And we're going to get on to Galway Derry, the All Ireland first. But just to remind our viewers and listeners of Group 1, obviously this is the first weekend of the All Ireland. You have Galway, Armagh, Derry, and Westmeath. Obviously, Jason's county there in Westmeath in the group of death. I'm sure Jason would have a lot of opinions on that. But Westmeath are playing next weekend against Armagh. The game this weekend is Galway against Derry, live on GA Go at 5:30 on Saturday evening in Pearse Stadium in Salt Hill. Galway off the back of winning a Connacht title, Derry off the back of losing by 6 points to that Donegal team in that game in Ulster. But there is some arguments that the break might do Derry good. Would you agree with that kind of narrative of that, Jason? Do you think the break would do the likes of Conor Glass, Shane McGuigan, and all them players good going into this game?
Oh, I don't know. Like, it's when you're looking for an All-Ireland, you want to be playing regularly enough. Like, it must be nearly a month now since they got beaten. So, whereas Galway have had the euphoria of beating Mayo, they've had a lot going on as well. So, 3 games played for Galway, Derry, 1 defeat. First in 3 years or something in Ulster as well, wasn't it? I think you had a few bits up about that as well. Like, they must be annoyed at where they are, of having had to, sit around watching everyone else going about their business, for the past couple of weeks. I don't think they would have wanted that. I don't think that really would be Mickey Hart's way of looking at it. Yeah, they were beaten, but I'm sure behind the scenes they probably played a few games here and there, but I think they would have liked a bit of a championship standard to be playing against, really, as opposed to challenge games. Denise is all right.
It's an interesting standpoint, definitely. But we talked about Galway earlier in the hurling, that it's a really, really poor state of affairs at the moment. With the football, it seems to have probably improved as the weeks have gone on. Yes, they struggled against Sligo in that semi-final. Yeah. But against Mayo, once they got their players back, the likes of Damien Comer, the likes of Shane Walsh, it'll be interesting to me where Sean Kelly actually plays with Killy McDay coming back into the team. Will they move him back to full back? It'll be interesting to see on Saturday. But Galway seem to be going along at a nice pace at the moment and could even put it up to Derry at home. Yeah,
they could. Obviously, I think they've played their get out of jail card now against Sligo. I don't think they'll get another one of them. It was great for Gleeson, the score against Mayo at the end. Myself and my friend were already chatting about the great speech, from Sean Kelly after. And obviously the next thing, as you mentioned about him, is where is he going to be on the field? It's hard to know. I would like to see Derry continue the high press on the kickouts with Lynch coming out. Now, I know it backfired terribly against them against Donegal, but it made for an interesting game. And I think if Mickey Hart is brave enough, I think he'd go for it again, just to try and rattle a few feathers a little bit and just put Galway under a bit of pressure. There's a few ever reliables, we'll say, Comer, Walsh, Finnerty has been brilliant. Galway just needs, they're ticking along is probably what you said is probably the best way to describe them. They're not, even though Mayo was brilliant, they're not pulling up trees or anything like Sligo was fortunate. And maybe this is now where they will just kick things into gear. And obviously, as I said, as a Westmeath person, there's a lot of interest in this one. We're a bit disappointed in Westmeath because we wanted, my aim, our hope was just give us different teams. And we ended up getting Galway and Armagh. Instead of Tyrone, we just got Derry. So it's essentially the same as last year, nothing new. But I think Galway will go into this slightly better off than Derry with the games under their belts already.
Is there an element from a Galway standpoint that there was a sense last year that Galway were moving along nicely, going into the All-Ireland group stage, and then by the Westmeath game, they seemed to be going well as well. And then the Armagh game happened, and then they lost to Mayo, and they were out of the championship just like that. Do you feel Galway are timing their run right at this stage of the season when they perform well against Mayo? Because obviously in the league, they nearly went down. They performed poorly in that game. Against Sligo, they struggled. Against Mayo, they started to pick up form again. Do you think Galway are timing their run right going to the All-Ireland this year?
Probably, if they can keep the standard up. It's all well and good thinking, we'll chug on by Sligo and we'll, it'd be great to beat Mayo, and the way they won it was brilliant. All it takes is for one derailment, and suddenly, you're asking questions about, was it all right? Should we have hammered Sligo in the first place? Or there's a lot of things. They need to keep the standard up. They need to keep lads fit and not injured, because Damien Comer gets injured again, they become a different team in attack. I don't think there's the same potency, the same sort of, physical attitude that he brings. Obviously, he's built like a tank. So, and you need a bit of that to complement, the deft kicking of Walsh and great play of Finnerty and all that as well. So, yeah, they are timing it as probably best as they can. They beat Sligo, which was fine. They avoided the headlines of the shock and everything else. So I think, they could time it well. But as I said, they really need to, they just need to make sure that they keep going, don't get lads injured, keep playing, good football. And they'll hopefully get through their first couple of games, I'd say.
Definitely so. And Denise has another comment in here. They didn't really shoot the lights out against Mayo, just managed the closing stages better than Mayo did all along, with an element of luck. To be honest, Denise, I'd actually disagree. Galway had a 69% shot accuracy. They did really well in that game, I thought. They deserved to win that game. So maybe there was an element of luck and things like that, but Galway definitely deserved their win and deserved their flowers that day. But just before we get on to a prediction, you mentioned it there about Oran Lynch coming off his line, and you would want to see Derry do that again. The question is, will Mickey Hart do this again? Because it massively backfired for not one, not two, but 3 goals against Donegal. Surely Mickey Hart has to learn his lesson. Surely to not do it again. But obviously, you think differently. You want him to do it again.
Oh, yeah, just as a semi-neutral, I suppose, in the game. Yeah, it's just the entertainment factor alone is brilliant. I know Dara Boyle had a field day, with the goals against him, but there's something very enjoyable about it. There's something risky about it. Maybe Mickey Hart tries it, but learns from where did it go wrong. It went wrong as Donegal, because when the kickouts were lost, there was no real reaction from the other players around. While Lynch is bursting himself to get back to the goals, the other lads are kind of trailing back as well, and nobody has gone out to actually try and just slow them down a little bit. It was, I don't know, it was a bizarre kind of game, but yeah, I would like to see Derry continue to try it. Like, they are a mixed team of, age and youth, so there's no reason they couldn't give it a go again. Just because it doesn't work once or it backfires once doesn't mean you abandon it and not try and figure out why it went wrong. It went wrong because it wasn't just the goalkeeper's fault. He'll take the headlines, flapping at the ball over his head and it's going over him, but it's the other guys around who didn't really stand up, and tactically that has to be part of it. He can't just be, let's bring out Lynch to midfield for a big massive kick out, hope he wins it looks deadly, and the other 14 lads will stand around and watch him do it. Like, it has to be part of a team thing. I do think Galway could get at Chrissy McCaig a little bit. As much as I love him, and he was a great, one of my first ever podcast guests, he was an absolute gent. I don't know, is it just he looks a little bit like he could be got at a bit more than in previous years, where I thought you would want to get a train to drive through him to get him out of the way. Whereas now, I don't know, lads are just seem to be just have that step on him. I don't know, is it just age or something? But I think Galway could find a bit more joy against Derry than maybe people think. I think there's a bit more for the nifty forward against Derry than maybe in the past. So yeah, I know you're doing your predictions, and I'm gonna not just because I'm staying in a Galway person's house here or I'd be kicked out, but I think Galway could win it.
I'm actually going to go for a draw here. I think it could be a very tight game, and it might be a bit of a cop-out. Definitely, Denise went back as my comment about Mayo Galway being luck-related. In luck in relation to getting winning score at the last minute via place ball. No.
They had a chance to respond, and they shanked the ball very far wide. They had a good 90 seconds after that. And O'Connor, I think, wasn't it, from long range, just decided, I've had enough of this, I'm going to drive with the outside of my foot, and shanked it wide. So, bit of patience, and they might have leveled it, who knows.
Definitely so, and we'll get on to Mayo in a bit, but for this game, Jason is predicting Galway to win. I'm going to go for a draw. We'll have to see what happens in that. One game that probably is probably safe enough to call is Kerry against Monaghan on Saturday at 3 p.m. live on Go, just to bring up the group for the two teams here. So Kerry are the group with Monaghan, Louth and Meath. So Kerry should win this group with much ease, to be honest with you. But like Kerry Monaghan, do you expect Monaghan to put up a test here at Killarney, or do you think Kerry will win this easily?
No, I think Monaghan I think Vinnie Corey has found it hard going since that Cavan defeat. I think that was a real sickener to lose in the way they did. I know Pádraig Faulkner, was excellent for Cavan that day, but it would be a Monaghan's thing to come back and actually put up a good performance. I don't think all the begging stuff at the NFL and Carolina and all that, I don't think it really helps too much. I know they say, it's deflecting away from the rest of the team, but really it's not. I don't think it's doing them any good. Kerry are not firing on all cylinders yet and are still going fine. Love Joe O'Connor around midfield. I think he's brilliant. I'd love to see him continue to keep going the way he's going. I love the great thing about Kerry midfielders of the past. I love David Moore and all them were brilliant. Joe O'Connor's a great midfielder as well. I think Kerry have far too much here. If either of the Cliffords decide to turn up and play, I think Kerry will win comfortably enough.
I'll probably go for a Kerry win as well. But just a question in relation to Kerry's group in general, Meath, Louth, Monaghan. Do you think this group will help Kerry gain a bit of confidence, or potentially could it go the other way, that when they get to Croke Park and face a Galway, a Mayo, a Derry, that they fall asunder in Croke Park? Do you think the opponents of the group will help Kerry much in this All-Ireland campaign?
There's probably a yes and a no to it, as in they would be looking at that and thinking, well, that's 3 wins out of 3 if we play to a 7 out of 10. Whereas Louth could be the game that is interesting. Like, Ger Brennan knows Kerry football from all his experience playing against them. So, and he showed he knows Dublin football, in Croke Park the last day as well. And Louth were worthy opponents, of Dublin. So I think if Kerry stroll past Monaghan, I think they'll also stroll past Meath. As much as I do appreciate all that Colin O'Rourke is doing with Meath, Louth might be their only test. And yeah, as you say, when it comes to crunch time, have they had the challenges that they wanted? Well, you could look at it every year and say that really, like bar Cork in Munster, they don't end up getting a huge amount of tests generally until it comes to the big time. So it's probably nothing new for them, really. They're still going to be there or thereabouts at the end. I don't think it's going to affect them either way. They're still Kerry at the end of the day. Jack O'Connor he's no Egypt, like he knows exactly what he's doing. So yeah, no, I think they'll be okay. I think they'll be fine.
Yeah, Denise, another comment in here. Louth is going to be really Kerry's only test. Monaghan might be if Rory Began is back too, and she adds on, I don't really follow NFL. But just on Monaghan for a bit, like Darren Hughes obviously got a massive injury against Cavan. Hopefully he recovers soon, but I think that might be the last we've seen of Darren Hughes in a Monaghan shirt. Kieran Hughes is retired in the off-season as well. Conor McManus isn't getting any younger. Rory Began, what's the story with him? Is he going to the States or not? There's a bit of up in the air with that, and Vinnie Corey seemed to have struggled with this team in the league and the championship as well. So is this kind of the end for Monaghan when you look at even not just at the championship this season, but even looking further into the next few seasons, even in Division 2 next year? Would they find it hard to even get back up against the top teams in the country?
Yeah, probably. It's probably that most teams go through that transition part, they call it, isn't it? That takes a while, and for a county that isn't overly blessed with a massive amount of clubs to choose from, it's probably a longer transition again. I think the Vinnie Corey, the Cavan game probably annoyed him a little bit more because it was like a Corey versus Galligan, head-to-head type thing in a different sense as managers, and he probably really wanted to get one over on him just for, it's been like the newbies in some ways, so it's probably deflated Monaghan a bit. The begging thing doesn't help. McManus, as you said, like nobody stepped up to replace him, or there's no sign of anyone replacing him really yet. So yeah, this could be the end of the road for this Monaghan team, and maybe there's a change to come in the next couple of years.
Well, they've been a great county, and they've been probably one of the best. Yeah, they've been the best county for lower level counties, if you like, throughout the history. In fairness, and you'd hopefully they will recover in the next few years after this season. But we're both predicting a Kerry win in this game. We're moving on to Group 3 next. So Donegal, Tyrone will play next weekend. Clare against Cork is up against each other this weekend. That is the group in Group 3. And this game, Clare against Cork in Ennis on Saturday at 6 p.m. It isn't live anywhere, but I will be going to the game, so stats on this game on the way on Saturday evening. But this is a crucial game for both sides. Whoever loses this, in my opinion anyway, I think you might think the same, Jason, is out of the championship. So it's a big game for both.
Yeah, and I was fortunate supposed to see Clare in the league when they came to Mullingar. One of the most bizarre games of football I think I've ever been at, because the wind was so insane that the Clare midfielders were kicking, I won't say kicking, they were chipping 50-yard shots 20 yards over the bar in the first half, and they kicked 7 or 8 for easily. Like they have a decent enough team. Gavin Murray, of course, is a Westmeath man originally from Moat here in Westmeath, who's transferred down and is playing with Clare for the past couple of years as well. And then Icahn obviously getting his first score and his first goal there the last day as well, making good headlines too. Plenty of potential for Clare. You probably know a lot more than me on the Cork side. Like, I would still associate Cork equals Brian Hurley, and I'm still, maybe it's just me and I probably don't see enough of them or know enough of them, but to me it just seems like there's still an over-reliance on some of the eternal names of Cork. Or is maybe that, you probably know, is that a bit unfair maybe?
I honestly think Conor Corbett and Chris O'Jones are better threats than Brian Hurley. That's just my honest opinion. I just think both of them, like Chris O'Jones is one of the top scorers on play across championship and league. Conor Corbett adds something different, and there's rumours he's going down to AFL and things like that. Hopefully he stays as long as he can. Colm O'Callaghan in midfield is a very good midfielder. There's no kind of doubt with Cork, once they come up against a Tyrone, a Donegal, a Dublin, a Kerry, that they will put it up to them for 70 minutes of the game. There is a doubt in Cork with inconsistency, and you see this in the league. They lost to Cavan, they lost to Louth, and I feel like they could lose this game against Clare as well, unless they sense the danger. This is going to be a big game for them. If they lose this, then Donegal and Tyrone are going to be difficult games after that. So it's a big game for Cork, big game for Clare as well, because after this they go to Omagh to face Tyrone. So you feel like, again, like loser is gone nearly.
Yeah, you made hard work of, am I right? Was that Limerick in Munster that you were behind or level at half time or something? Like, it's Cork traditionally don't make these easier, in inverted commas, games, as you said, easier on themselves. But if they did come up against Kerry or Dublin or someone, they'll be in it till the end. So yeah, like, I haven't seen Clare and I haven't seen how they can play. I'm trying to think of the midfield. Is it Bohannon?
Bohannon and I'm trying to think of the other midfield. Brian McNamara, the under-20, is there now this year. Yeah,
Dara Bohannon was very, very impressive. I remember the couple of times I saw him. And maybe like I am leaning a little bit towards Clare purely on, I don't feel like I'm expert enough to comment on Cork because I don't get to see a whole lot of them, and I know Clare more because I've got to see them at home and everything. But Clare do impress me when they get going. They should have beaten Westmeath in the league, and you know, they still claim to have been robbed with that disallowed goal in the last minute, even though it actually was a free out. But anyway, I still think Clare, they look good. Like, there was nothing wrong with them against Kerry either. Kerry were in for a second gear, but Clare kept going at them, which I kind of like. So maybe Clare, like by a hair, possibly.
That's interesting because I think Clare will win this game. You think it. Aaron Prendergast from Gaelic Games Fan TV also thinks it as well. So that's 3 that actually say Clare over Cork, which I didn't think would be the case. But there you go. I think Clare did very well in that Munster final against Kerry as well. Kept it to single digits. Like, as you mentioned, Nicky Rackard was brilliant goal as well. Nice to see him get his first score. Dermot Coughlin at centre forward, I was really impressed with him against Kerry.
Didn't think of him at all,
Emma McMahon, a corner forward. Aaron Griffin scored a lot from play. So Clare do have a lot of young buzzing players in this team. And let's not forget, they did lose the 11 experienced lads plus their manager, Colin Collins. So Mark Fitzgerald deserves a lot of credit for even Clare be talked about by pundits or whatnot to even go on and win this game in the All-Ireland series.
They'd be happy enough if nobody talked about them. Like, you want, if it is, we're talking about like teams in transition like Monaghan, if they're a team in transition, which technically they will be, I suppose, in a managerial and player change, that you want as little limelight as possible for a while, and then if things start to go good, you're happy enough and you've gotten used to it. But they'd be quite happy to get into a Munster final and be beaten by Kerry, and everyone just goes, yeah, Kerry won again. That's it, grand. And, Icon gets all the plaudits, for his brilliant goal or whatever, and gets all the TikTok clips, but that'll do fine. They'll plod along. And I know Aaron said it as well, you were saying, and I've predicted a lot of bad things on with Aaron before, but I think Clare could be the one here.
I think so as well. I think Clare will win this game just slightly in Ennis, and it will be a tight one to call. Obviously, in Ennis last year in the championship, Clare did beat Cork down to a last-minute point from Killian Rowan. So, yeah, I think this will be a difficult game for Cork, and obviously, I'm going to go for a Clare win in this one as well. And the last group going to be discussed in the first match day is Group 2, Dublin, Mayo, Roscommon and Cavan. We have to wait for the Dubs next weekend. This weekend, it is our old friends in Mayo. They're up against Cavan this weekend in Castlebar at 5 p.m. on Saturday evening. But I think the main story out of this is, from a Mayo standpoint, they have to win this game to, challenge Dublin in the last group game. And for a Cavan standpoint, how big of a loss is Paddy Lynch going to be? Obviously, your heart goes out to him. ACL injury. It's just a tough one for him to take. Definitely.
Yeah, it was going to be hard enough with Paddy Lynch. It seems pretty impossible without him. He's going so well too, and so well loved up there. He's a Crisher Law man up in Cavan. Like, he was, as I said, they really needed him to have any hope. Now they need everyone to be at 110% to have any hope at all. Mayo, I think you probably know better, but I can only remember them conceding the goals in New York. I don't think they didn't concede any against Galway. I don't think they did that before that. So if you're going to need goals to beat Mayo, they're going to be hard to come by. And Mayo's defence are fairly rigid defensively, but are also very good going forward. So Matty Rowan, if he's doing well for Mayo, then Cavan are goosed. I'd be surprised. Just trying to think of what's Mayo's backline: Brickenden, Callanan,
Jack Coyne probably.
Yeah. Like they should have more than enough to hold Cavan. So, like, this is, I think, only going comfortably to Mayo.
Yeah, I think so as well. And from a Mayo standpoint, it is important for them to get a win after that defeat against Galway, where they were poor enough in that game, and Galway deserved to win, no doubt about it. So Mayo need to get a win, and I'm sure they will. It should be a comfortable game against Cavan. But then again, look at the side we are talking about. Mayo, a lot of Mayo fans even say I have a friend in college who is a Mayo fan, obviously, and he's always saying to me, Mayo play against the team, the level of the team they're playing against. And could this be the case on Saturday?
That's a good way of putting it, actually. I'd be surprised. Like, maybe they will play to a lesser gear, but they should still comfortably come through this. Like, they should be able to rotate and bring on plenty of the bench and, build your squad for the next couple of games. This should be the one that they stroll through. Realistically, I'd be surprised if it was anything else.
Yeah, I think Mayo should win this comfortably as well, but Cavan may put up a test. We'll have to see on Sunday. There is Tailteann Cup to come, but before that, we'll get on to the under-20 All-Ireland football final, and it is Tyrone against Kerry. It's a big game, no doubt about it. Tyrone beat Roscommon in the semi-final last weekend by 10 points. Kerry beat Meath by a singular point in Thurles. Should be a very interesting game, no doubt about it. Just wanted to bring up some stats and journey to the final for both sides. So for Tyrone, they beat Antrim by an absolute cricket score there, 8 goals and 16 points to 7 points. They drew against Down, beat Derry by a point, hammered Monaghan, scoring 5 goals along the way, and that beat Monaghan by a point in the semi-final, and then beat Derry on penalties in the Ulster final. And obviously that win over Roscommon, which was absolutely incredible from a Tyrone point of view. They've averaged a score rate of 314 per game, and average a concession rate of 110 per game. You look at Tyrone scores, the main guy up the top, Owen McElhone, 5 goals and 11 points in this campaign, and he has done well for Oma CBS and the Hogan Cup at schools level as well. So definitely want to watch this Sunday. Conor Owens has done well as well with 2 goals and 14 points. Rory McCullough with 2 goals and 11. Cormac Devlin, 3 goals and 6. Ronan Cassidy, 14 points. Shea O'Hare from wing back with 2 goals and 6 points as well has done absolutely brilliant. Then Owen Brawley, the other wing back. I don't know, is he related to Joe Brawley, but maybe Jason will know something about that. We'll have to see about that. But we'll move on to Kerry's scores and stats for their run to the final. So their journey, they beat Clare, Cork, Tipperary, and Cork again. They beat Cork by 6 points in that Munster final and beat Meath by a point. They've averaged a score rate of 113 per game and averaged a concession rate of 10 points. Onto their scores, and the key scorer here is Cormac Dillon with 1 goal at 26 points. Tomas Kennedy with 2 goals along the way in this run. Luke Crowley with 8 points, and worth noting as well, Luke Crowley will play in the Joe McDonagh Cup game hurlers against Offaly on the Saturday, and will play in this under 20 final on the Sunday. So very interesting to hear that. And they do have some brilliant players all over the field, the likes of Daniel Kirby, Charlie Keating, and Garrod Evans. So look at stats there, Jason. It looks like Tyrone probably have the upper hand in this, but Kerry are never going to go down lightly, especially in under 20 finals.
Yeah, I Oren Brawley, I don't know if he's actually related to Joe. I thought there would be more made of it if he was related to Joe, to be honest. So maybe he isn't. Yeah, Tyrone, I know you were showing the list of scores and stuff there. The other thing that kind of stood out to me was in their games is the raft of different scores you pointed out. Shea, they're obviously a cornerback as well. In all their games, the fewest number of scores they've had is 7. And the most they've had is 14 different scores in a game, which that's outrageous. It's essentially everyone bar your goalkeeper scoring, in a game, which is phenomenal. Kerry have a big reliance on young Cormac Dillon as well, and it kind of feels like one of those games where if Tyrone stop him, Tyrone will win the game. If Tyrone don't stop him, Kerry might win the game. But it probably, I would say, could be the game of the weekend. Underage football finals tend to be brilliant. So I think Tyrone are hard to look past with that amount of scoring potential from 2 to 15 on the bench. I can only see them winning, which I wouldn't be a bad thing either. I think it's great to see that so many talented players, so many talented scorers coming through as well. It's great for the game rather than looking at a team who are just shutting out 9-8 and 7-6 games. They're actually just hammering teams and putting up big scores, which is exactly what we want. So Tyrone, I think, to win that one.
I think Tyrone will win this game as well, and especially the fact they beat Roscommon last weekend by 10 points. That was an incredible win, and considering Roscommon beat Galway quite comprehensively in that Connacht final, I think that was an incredible scoreline to put up from a Tyrone point of view. 318 inside 60 minutes. 21 scores in 60 minutes. It's unreal. It really is. And one star of the show that I want to talk about, Jason, I don't know, do you know much about it, but Owen McElhone at centre forward. This guy seems to be the new star boy. It was Rory Canavan a few years ago, it was Darragh Canavan a few years beforehand. Could we see the next big great coming up in Tyrone? Because this guy has it all. By the looks of schools level, minor level, under 20 level, he looks absolutely incredible.
Yeah, and if he joins up in senior with a couple of other young stars that you've mentioned as well, what a formidable forward line that would be to come up against. Like, there's plenty of potential in that Tyrone team to progress. Now, I know it doesn't always, they always say, it's great, can't wait till these guys get senior, and then suddenly it just falls apart, like that Roscommon underage team years ago as well, that just didn't really materialize. So, but he seems to be some kind of wizard, whatever it is that he's doing or whatever he's eating for breakfast, because he's just scoring for fun. I think that 5'11" you showed, is it all from play possibly, or the majority of it is from play? Like
it's all from play.
Yeah, that's outrageous. Like, and their average scoring of 314 a game, like, and he contributes so much of that. So yeah, hopefully one for the future. Hopefully someone to like rival Clifford and rival the Dubs and stuff, might bring Tyrone football on another level
from
in the future.
Owen McElhone. Yeah, it's incredible. It's an incredible tally and definitely one to watch. Definitely on Sunday once the final comes in O'Moore Park in Portlaoise, and Tyrone should be favourites going into that game. And we'll move on to the Tailteann Cup now and move on with groups. So in Group 1, we have Waterford against Kildare in Fraherfield in Dungarvan at 5 p.m. on Saturday evening, and Longford against Leitrim in Glen Brothers Pierce Park at 2:30 on Sunday afternoon. So, like, you would expect Kildare to beat Waterford. I think that goes without saying. Yeah. But Longford Leitrim could be a tough game to call.
Two relatively poor sides. My cousin has left the Longford panel this season. I'm not sure if Paddy Christie is the most popular man in Longford these days. I was joking with my uncle the last day. I said that he should stick his name in for the Longford job soon enough. So they're just they're not having a great season, Longford. And I used to like going to watch them, especially obviously when my cousin was playing. It was really good, and at times they were a very fast, free-flowing team. They had all the Mullen Yacht lads in there as well, and they were going good, but they're just, I don't know, they're falling a bit by the wayside these days, which is kind of disappointing for them, especially for a county, who really, they could do with a bit of a boost, on the football field like that. Leitrim, Andy Moore has kind of gone out of the headlines a lot, lately. We're always expecting his name to be kind of in or around the newspaper somewhere, but Leitrim kind of just disappeared off the face of the earth a little bit. So two teams that could probably really do with a win of any kind by the 1 point margin or whatever. But I think Leitrim might just beat Longford, which I don't like saying it because I have big love for Longford, but I think Leitrim will beat them. I think Longford are not in a great place at the moment.
Yeah, it's an interesting standpoint, definitely. I would have predicted Longford to win this game, especially at home. But don't you mention a few things about Longford there? I don't know.
I just know that from like my cousin doesn't is involved in the setup anymore, but I still know a few of them on it, and it just doesn't seem to have the same desire and hunger and whatever else. So it's just, I don't know, it seems it's a bit like us in some ways. It's gone a little bit flat. So maybe they will win. It'll be the kickstart they need. But at the moment, if you're to go by how things are, you'd have to say Leitrim are probably slight favourites.
I'm going to stick with my prediction. I'm going to go for Longford just to stick with it there. But it should be an interesting one to call. Definitely, we're both predicting Kildare to beat Waterford. Moving on to Group 2, Wexford against Antrim on Saturday at 4 p.m. and Tipperary against Sligo on Saturday at 2 p.m. I assume we're both picking Sligo for the latter game there, but for the former game, Wexford against Antrim, could be a tight one to call this, especially with Wexford being at home in Wexford Park. And Wexford being on good form themselves, pushing Sligo a bit in that last round game. So Wexford could really put it up to Antrim here.
Yeah, you'd probably expect them to put it up a little bit. Like if you're going to get on a bit of a run, you need to keep it going because they're not blessed with the footballers of 2004 era when I would have been watching them play against Westmeath all the time, and they were a really tough team to beat. They don't have those Matty Fords and the likes anymore. So you take whatever slim positives that you can, and at the moment they're not doing too bad. I don't know if they'd beat Antrim. Antrim coming down the coast, though, I suppose it's not a nice journey to have to come all the way down for a game, and that could affect them. But I think I'll go for a draw in this one.
I'm going to go for Wexford. It should be a very interesting game, no doubt about it, but a draw is a decent prediction as well. We'll have to see how that plays out. Into the Group 3 games this weekend, it is Carlow against Fermanagh on Saturday at 3 p.m. in Netwatch Cullen Park, and Wicklow against Laois, Live and Jay go at 3 p.m. in Aughrim. I don't know about you, Jason, but I sense a Wicklow win here, especially a fortress like Aughrim here. So could Wicklow do it?
I hate Wicklow. after how we fell apart against them, I haven't gotten over that. Oisin McConville drives me mad as well. But yeah, I fancy a Wicklow win. Again, things aren't flying spectacularly down in Laois, from what the family down there sort of mentioned a little bit. Port Arlington lads not firing on all guns. Port Laois lads, yeah, sort of here and there. It's not flying for Laois either, so it's the perfect thing for McConville to tap into. And yeah, Fortress Ockram, as they say. So yeah, I'll probably go with a Wicklow win here as well.
And for the other game, Carlow and Fermanagh. Team Carlow put up a tester. Fermanagh, they scored 3 goals and 16 points last weekend against Wicklow. So Fermanagh looking serious form in this competition.
Fermanagh should have too much, like, even from playing the game in Ulster, like, it should be enough to get you started for the season. And Carlow, I don't think will have enough to get close to them. I think a comfortable Fermanagh win.
Yeah, I think Fermanagh should win this game as well. And moving on to Group 4, Limerick against Offaly on Saturday at 3 p.m. and London against Down on Saturday at 6 p.m. Yes, you would imagine that Down will beat London. Down are one of the favourites for this competition. But moving back to Limerick and Offaly, how on earth did Offaly lose by 14 points to London last week? I actually don't know how on earth that happened with Offaly having such young talent there. And is there a question mark that they could even go to Limerick this weekend and lose that too? So if Offaly were to lose this weekend, it'd be a disaster for Declan Kelly's team.
Yeah, it would. I know we were saying obviously Limerick had you guys, I think, level or whatever, or close enough at half time in Munster. So, like, they know they can play a bit of football. Stunned by Offaly last week. I was texting Michael Maher, the London manager, as well, and you could sense the buzz of, you know, his messages as well, like a first championship win in 11 odd years or something they were saying. So I was thrilled for them, but I was equally stunned by how out of it Offaly were. Like, they were just, it's baffling in many ways, like, for a team who, you know, all the Lowery and Michael Dygan, all the stuff, you know, it's going on in the background, and how Offaly were about to become a force again, and then to go and get mauled by London was just astonishing. It'll probably not really be remembered as much, but like, if you're doing a review at the end of the year, you'd put it down as like one of the stunning scores of the season, like, because it was just so bizarre, and yet gets no real publicity because it's, you know, considered kind of nothing for either, really. Limerick could do something against Offaly. I don't know if I'd go as far as to say they'd beat them. Although when a team is flat on their face like Offaly are, what better time for Limerick to take the scalp than when they come down to visit? So I don't know. I'm torn on that one. I think London could do all right against Down. And the other one, funnily enough, like, I don't think they'll win. I'm a bit like caught in both of these. I think Limerick and Offaly, that Limerick could win, Offaly could win. London and Down might be close. I think Down will win it. Just Limerick and Offaly, I can't actually call. I don't know. I'd probably just say draw then in that case. But, like, what's stopping Limerick from beating them? Like, there's nothing stopping Limerick. They've nothing to lose. All the pressure's on Offaly. So go for Limerick. Why not? Why not? I've no pass with Limerick winning that one. So it'll quieten down the SNA that I work with in school as well. She's mad Offaly, so it'll quieten her down a bit.
Exactly. Yeah. I'd probably go for Limerick win as well. And the thing is, Limerick, I think, are on a losing streak of 14 or 15 games across league and championship. So what a way to stop it if it was this weekend. So I think they could do it. I think they genuinely could do it. So Limerick could beat Offaly in that game. And just before we get on to the LGFA, you think London will put it up to Down? Like, Down are one of the favourites for the competition here.
Yeah, just when you have to go over to London, I don't know. I just don't know if that changes the team's mentality a little bit. Like, obviously, you know, the sort of form book in history would tell you after you've had a fantastic win as a small team, you tend to get hammered the next day because you've been on such a buzz and you've forgotten actually how to do things. It's probably more my heart is saying I'd love to see London put it up to Down, and they might do well. If I was to sit down and actually think about it, I'd probably say that Down will probably win by about 15 points. But maybe it's just the heart of me just wants to see London keep going, because I know the work that Michael Maher puts in over there, like, and the lads seem to be really buying into it the last number of years, and he's a lovely guy, and he cares so much about that team that it'd be nice for him to get another sort of it mightn't be a win, but maybe just a performance to follow up on what they had. So yeah, look, it's very much a head versus heart type thing where I want one thing and the reality is probably it's never going to happen, but it's still worth a shot, hopefully.
See how they get on Saturday anyway. The London footballers against Down. Before we end the podcast here, we'll go out to the Cedar LGFA Finals at provincial level. So Cork against Kerry is one of them on Saturday at 4 p.m. live at the TG4 YouTube channel. This final, Kerry are obviously favourites going into with the likes of Louise Devore-Hurtig, the likes of Emma Deneen, who's in brilliant form at the moment as well. You have other players like Hannah O'Donoghue, who and Kerry were the league finalists for a reason, All-Ireland finalists for a reason. Cork haven't done too badly in the championship. They lost to Kerry slightly so in the Munster championship. They did beat Waterford and Tipperary by a point from the last game, but they are still in this Munster final. So, and Cork do have a lot of turnaround of players. Obviously, Doireann O'Sullivan retiring, Ciara O'Sullivan, Roisin Phelan, all them type of players, or the Finn or Farmer over the last few seasons. But younger players have stepped in, like Abigail Ring, Lydia McDonagh, obviously still a Katie Quirk there as well. So I think Kerry are probably going in as favourites for this, but Cork will not lie down, surely.
Yeah, Kerry will win, I would say, for the, as you mentioned, the retirees from Cork, the replacements, the new ones who've kind of come through. It'll be a good learning curve for them to take on Kerry in a final. But I think Kerry just have too much. Like, they're going to be thereabouts at the end of what they call the business end of the season. Again, and I can't see anything other than, Louise probably scoring more than the Cork team, probably, herself. She could have one of those days. So, a Kerry win, definitely. I have to give a shout as well. I know we've gone past the football. Westmeath are in an All-Ireland final as well this weekend in under 20B final against Down. So I'll be going to that one. So hopefully we'll win that one. So, but yeah, definitely Kerry in the ladies football, I would say.
Yeah, I would say Kerry as well. Best of luck to Westmeath in that B final. I think in the same venue, is it the Westmeath ladies footballers are playing this weekend against Wexford as well?
I can't remember. We were in the same venue. I know Westmeath and Wexford is a 5:30. There was a triple header, I think, this weekend. So
I think is it the under 20 final and then the two LGFA junior and intermediate?
Yeah, something like that. I knew our ladies were moved to 5:30 for a triple header. So. But yeah, Westmeath Down is in Navan. Actually, we're going to Tailteann for that one. So, hopefully it'd be nice to get a victory under the belt. They haven't had a great season generally, so it's nice to finish on a high.
Definitely, so it'll do brilliant if Westmeath won that game. And just on the LGFA, although we don't talk about intermediate junior much, but seeing as we have a Westmeath guy on the podcast right now, Westmeath against Wexford in the intermediate, would you be confident in a Westmeath win there?
Yeah, very strong team. Frank Brown from Mayo's come in along with Dermot Power, who I know well, and they had a couple of sticky kind of games already. There was a game in St. Lomas there the last day where I actually was reporting on it. I had the score different. I had them down as having won by a point, but it turns out one of them was disallowed that I didn't know about. So it was a draw, which sort of. Yeah, I think they're strong enough to win. It just very much depends on the day. Like, realistically, on paper, they have an incredibly strong, fast, athletic, very physical team as well. It doesn't always translate on the pitch, but maybe just with Frank having come in and Dermot and changing a few things, it probably needs a little bit of time to bed in. They were kind of steamrolled a little bit in a couple of their early games, particularly in the first half where they just weren't awake. So hopefully, they'll get the job done against Wexford. It'd be great for Frank and Dermot and for Lauren, the goalkeeper, who's the captain, and all the girls. So I'd be hoping they get on well.
Exactly. So, in the last game of the weekend is the LGFA senior final between Armagh and Donegal, and the Ulster final at 3:30 on Sunday live at the TG4 YouTube channel and BBC iPlayer as well for Northern Ireland viewers. So. This should be an interesting final considering Armagh have Amy Mackin in the former life at the moment. They've won nearly every game in Division 1. They only lost one to Dublin by a cricket score, but they were playing nearly a second or third team in that game, so you could read too much into it. Laura McConville obviously winning Player of the Month, the GPA Player of the Month as well. Armagh are on a high at this present moment in time under Shane McCormick, and it's going to be impossible to see how Donegal actually stop this juggernaut, which is Armagh at the moment. Maybe the main question from an Armagh point of view, could they win the All-Ireland this year?
Yeah, and I've been fortunate in the past maybe 6-7 months to have commentated on quite a few of the Armagh girls in the college football, and it's where I saw firsthand a number of them, and I was kind of blown away by how pacey they were. I wasn't expecting them to sort of be as direct and as physical in some ways that they were. And then obviously you've got Amy, who's just like one of the best around, one of the best probably has ever played. So Donegal are going to have serious work to try and stop them from winning. I think Armagh will win. And if it was a few years ago, probably would have been the other way. I probably would have said Donegal would probably be the favourites. But Armagh have just come through the ranks as brilliant. They're absolutely fantastic to watch. College team are brilliant. So I enjoyed commentating on so many of them this year as well. And yeah, I think All Ireland, yeah, why not? Like, there's no reason they can't be there. Whether they win it, another question, but they'll be thereabouts for sure.
Definitely will be. I'll probably say if Armagh to win that game against Donegal, and they'll definitely put it up to Dublin and Kerry later on down the season. There's no doubt about it. So that is all football, hurling, everything, the whole shebang in 1 hour and 50 minutes on the clock there. So that's a long time. So I think we need a break from talking about it all. So give the video a like, subscribe, all that good stuff on Spotify, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, all them social media platforms. Obviously follow Jason's podcast, the Loaf of Bread Podcast on Instagram, whatever he's on, Twitter, TikTok as well. And all social media, all podcasting platforms as well. And until the next time, lads, and thanks to Capture Athletics for sponsoring today's show as well. And until the next time, lads, we'll see you all the next episode, and take care.